Do you know how armor works in Tarkov? Like actually know, not kind of know. Do you know which plate material is the best? Did you even know that the plate material matters? Yeah, Tarkov's armor system is insanely complex, and it's one of the more confusing systems in Tarkov. And Tarkov has a whole lot of confusing systems, so something that tops that list is definitely worth an explanation video. Now the good news, when it comes to questions of which plates should you use, there's a simple order of best to worst. So you don't actually have to understand all the little minute details. You just have to remember this order that I'm going to give you. And once we go through that, I'll spend the rest of the video explaining how the armor system functions in the context of removable plates and the soft armor behind it, as well as going over the finer details between the different materials and show some examples of outlier cases that actually matter. Now to help in all of this, I'm going to use a simulation tool from Tarkov Gunsmith. Now, I'm not just trusting this on blind faith. I've verified quite a few of these results with independent testing ourselves, though as usual, it's never quite that simple. But for the sake of this video and the way we're going to display things, this is one of the best tools to do it. So first things first, which plate is best, which is worse? Now we have 6 removable plate materials to choose from. We've got ceramic, steel, ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, which we'll just call poly going forward, aluminum, and then you get into your combined materials and Titan. Now aramid and glass are also material types. You know, if you will look at this armor here, there's aramid, and then you got your glass, but that's not part of the plate. So for the most part, we're just going to ignore those in this video. Now these materials where you've got Titan here and ceramic there are what differentiate between the best and worst plate when simply comparing how many bullets they can stop, or in other words, which gives you the highest survivability. Now, there are of course other factors like repairability and weight, and those can be important when picking your armor, but those are far more subjective, so I don't want to take those into account with this kind of ranking system. So I've already kind of given it away. Order from best to worst is going to be Titan and combined materials. Then you've got aluminum and polyethylene, steel, ceramic. Now, the way these are set up is these pairs of armor, so Titan and combined materials, they're functionally the same. The difference between them is so minuscule, it's not going to matter in your day-to-day raids or anything like that. And the same goes for basically steel and ceramic. These are functionally the same. Obviously, you have a huge weight difference in them, but how they function as protection is pretty much the same compared to one another. Now, the difference between aluminum and poly is it's the same and it's not. We'll get into that in more detail when we get into those. But when you're looking at armors, aside from repairability, these two are pretty much identical. Now, if you aren't aware, I just committed the cardinal sin of YouTubers by giving you the whole point of the video right up front and not making you watch through the whole video and hiding it somewhere in there to make sure you get that long watch time. I do that because I get it. A lot of you either know a ton of this information or you really don't care about all the extra stuff and you just want to know which plate to use. So I'm not going to burn up a bunch of your time to give you the answer. Unfortunately, the mighty YouTube algorithm doesn't care about you. It only cares about how much time you watch and interact with a video. So can I ask you to offset that watch time if you're one of those folks that wants to bail early, which is totally fine. All I'm asking is that if you can, throw a comment down there saying, you know, you learned something, or if you like the video, and maybe even a sub if you aren't already. I'd greatly appreciate that in return for me giving you info right up front. Now, for everybody else who is still going to watch, let's get into what is honestly the real cool stuff, at least what I think is, and how all this works and get you up to speed and understanding this whole process. And the first thing we're going to do in this is we're going to look at how much better one plate is than the other when it comes to the survivability. Now, this varies insanely from, you know, if you go from class 3 to 4 to 5 and 6 plates, and then which bullets are being fired at them. You know, if you have a class 3 or 4 plate and somebody's shooting, let's say 855A1 at you, it doesn't matter. The bullet goes right through there. Whereas if you have a class 6 plate and somebody's shooting a pistol round at you, then, you know, all bets are off. The plate lasts forever. So instead of trying to cover everything, I want to look at some really common examples of ammo you'll see frequently against plates that you see frequently. And that is class 4. That's what all of these are. All of these are class 4 plates. It also so happens that I think that's the only place you can get an aluminum plate. So it works out pretty good that way, because I can't show you class 5 or 6 aluminum because it isn't in the game, at least yet. Now for ammo, we're going to go with a common ammo. And yes, it's on the weaker end. We can look at some of the more advanced ammos with it, but for class 4 plates, The ammo I'm going to choose to show the comparison is going to be 855. It's the most common 5.56 round out there. You see it very frequently, even later in the wipe, because people don't have tons of money and they might be using SOST, which isn't a ton better, but a little bit. But 855 has 31 pen. So while it pretty much ignores class 3 armor or class 2 armor, class 4 performs pretty well against it and gives us this good comparison when looking at all of the different plate materials. Okay, so we're gonna dive right into Tarkov Gunsmith. This isn't a advertised or a sponsored video or anything by them. Yes, it's gonna send a ton of traffic their way, but it's a good tool. I like it. It helps me understand systems. It'll help you understand systems. They got a lot of their tools there, but we're gonna be specifically looking at the ballistic simulator. And what this does is it basically just does a projection based on all the math that the game does with armor and bullets and shows us a nice little chart. Now you can get pretty complex in here. You can add multiple layers of armor. We're only going to look at one layer for now. We will get into the air mid because that is important, but the first things up, I just want to show the plates as they are by themselves. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to throw in 855 in here, regular 855, not 855A1, and then we're going to pick our armor. Now, there's a whole huge list of stuff in here. The simplest thing is either know your plate. You can sort by, armor class, all of that stuff. I'm just going to go in here and type Titan. We're going to look for our level 4 plate, which is right here, which is our Kiba Arms Titan ballistic plate. So that's going to be, we're going to select our armor. Now, we're not going to play with any of the penetration or damage. We're not going to get complexities of the ballistic system and drop off. We're just going to look at it as if the bullet was coming right out of the end of the gun, right at you're standing right against the barrel. So that's if you're into Mythbusters, that's kind of where we're at with the experiment, if you will, here. We're also at 100% durability. We're not reduced in anything like that. We're not changing any other fancy stuff. So you can do single shot and it's just going to show you this, but that's not what I'm after. I'm after the multi-shot because it shows us this handy little chart. Now, again, this is Titan. So what this is saying is each of these is 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot, 4 shot. And then percentages is just a percentage based on whatever they're looking at right here. Now, the one really important stat we're going to look at is this blue one. That's the cumulative chance to kill. So what this does is it basically stacks each bullet each time you take a shot. So for example, at shot 3, let me get this scrolled down a little bit here. Shot 3, you have a 0.5% chance of dying on the 3rd shot, next to nothing. Shot 4 is 2.3%. And what that's doing is it's adding the specific chance of 1.9 with a specific chance of 0.5. And that just adds up. The blue is the green sequentially added up. I'm not sure the right way to put that. But the more important thing is the 50% mark. This is what I have picked as kind of the comparison point, because that's where it's a coin toss of you're going to live or die. One other thing that's really important to notice, and we'll show as we go through these different plates, it doesn't matter what the plate material is. On your very first shot, there is a 13% chance, 13.3, to penetrate. So yes, technically you can get a penetration shot on your first shot of class 4 armor with 855. Just the chance is pretty low. But as you can see, as we go through each shot, that penetration chance climbs and climbs and climbs until it eventually gets to a point where it's just 100% and it's going to go through every shot anyways. And this is the part where the different materials really matter. The material type of the plate is what determines how fast they wear out, how much damage pass-through can happen, and then later on we'll show how much of a benefit you get from having aramid underneath. And again, that's why I like this cumulative chance to kill percentage, because it takes all of these factors and it wraps them up into a nice little package that's easy to compare in this one stat. And it does that because it doesn't just take into the specific stat that goes with each kind of material, but it wraps all of the different dice rolls that go in with pen and damage reduction for each successive shot, and it spits it out into a number that is just, again, easy to look at. Now, just to show you guys pretty straightforward here, I'm going to throw in a combined materials plate so that you guys can see what I'm talking about, how the percentages are similar. So we'll go, it's Spartan Omega. We'll click on that. We'll do multi-shot and we'll compare side by side pretty much what we got here. So what you see on the 5th shot with the Spartan Omega is you got a 49.3% chance of, 6th shot, 49.3% chance of getting through. When you go look at the Titan at the 6th shot, you've got a 49.3% chance. Your 5th shot is different. You got 7.2 there versus with the Omega, you are a 30.8. So sure, you could say there's a substantial difference on that 5th shot, but that 50% mark is where I get into there isn't really a huge difference between the two plates. So let's go back to, I'm going to get rid of this one because I don't want to get it too cluttered in here. We're going to go back to the Titan ballistic plate. This is the one that I prefer to wear because of this little bit of difference at level 5. Yes, it's technically better, but you're not going to, if you have a Titan or combined, don't sweat it. Use the one that you have that's either available to you or it's the best durability. So we're going to walk through this, and basically each shot with 855, you're gonna get all these stats. So you have a 87% chance to block it or a 13% chance of penetration on the very first shot. However, if the round does go through, it's only going to do 32 damage. Now, if you look, 855 does 54 damage. And this is a product of just how the armor system works. And I'm not going to, well, maybe we do another video explaining terminal ballistics and Tarkov, because you can do that on its own. Point being is that when the durability is really high like this, even if you get a roll and get a penetration, it's not going to do full damage. And again, on the second shot, you've got a 17% chance of penetrating. It's going to do 32 damage, just like the first bullet did. Bullet 3, you go up to a 33% chance to penetrate, and then 34, and then 34, and now you're getting to 35% chance, and then you'll really start to see the penetration chance climb, and that's with this individual shot. So that's why it's not great. So this is not looking at as a cumulative percentage. This is looking at if you have an armor durability that's reduced at this point, what is the chance that it can be penetrated at that armor durability. Once a plate gets penetrated, the damage is much higher. So if you pen a plate, it does more damage to the plate. So if you get a lucky roll on, say, the first shot and penetrate, you're essentially going to jump to the 3rd or 4th round with your next shot. But I'm already starting to get too much into the weeds here. Like I said, the big important number is your 6th shot is your 50%, your coin flip of where you're going at. So let's go compare this to what was one of my favorite armors until I really dug into this, and that is the UDHP, the poly plates, monoclete. I think, there we go, monoclete. There's your class 4. We got 855. We're going to do multi-shot, and here you can see it's a little bit more subjective, because on your 5th shot, you're 34% chance, but on your 6th shot, you're 88%. So you could say 5.5 rounds to get to that 50-50 shot, but technically it's the 6th shot that's going to be comparable to your Kiba arms, right? Same thing. 6th shot is where you get over 50%, though even your 7th shot is going to be basically the same as your poly plate now, with that 88% chance to pen. So this is where you get that little bit of a difference between poly and Titan. And this is with 855. This graph grows the difference in these when you get into lower pen ammo or higher level armor. So not a huge difference, right? We'll say 1 bullet. So from our Titan or our combined materials to poly or aluminum, you have a 1 bullet change on how durable it is. So let's look at the next one up is going to be steel. So again, we'll go into 855, we'll throw that in, and we'll pull up our steel plate, global arms, class 4, multi-shot, and there we go. So here we got our 5th round is going to be a 54% chance. So that is worse than the 5th round here, right? And because your 5th round here is only 34%, but we're still only 1 bullet less than the Titan. Though the difference between 6 and 7 is pretty extreme, and you go straight from, the one thing steel does is it holds up until it doesn't, so it's going to be okay, and then it fails really quickly. And that comes into play because if you get a penetration on steel early on, somebody gets a really lucky roll, their chance to penetration chance over here at 34%. If they get through the steel, it wrecks its durability, and you basically move all of this over 1 bullet. So even though you've got a 50-50 chance of dying on the 5th bullet, if they get a lucky dice roll, that's going to go to 4. And there's even some circumstances, though they're really rare, that you can die on the 3rd shot. It's just super rare. You got to be really unlucky, but it is there. So all in all, the way I look at it, and you can disagree based on what I've shown here, or you can do your own stuff, but when you look at these 3 different plates at class 4 with 855, you have a 1 bullet difference. Now I get it. A bullet or 2 might not sound like all that much, And in some circumstances, it isn't. If you get the drop on someone or they get the drop on you and you're able to just full auto into the chest and not miss any shots, it's not going to matter what armor you really have. What's the difference between, 4 bullets and 6 bullets when you're shooting at, 900 rounds a minute? It's less than a second. But most fights aren't like that. Arms get in the way, bullets miss, some hit your stomach instead of your chest. So while in a perfect simulation, 1 bullet isn't much, in your everyday fight with folks that have, usually less than 25% accuracy, that's really the difference between 4 or 5 bullets at the very least. So I want to emphasize that. I want you to keep in mind that just because we're showing only 1 or 2 bullets of difference here, in reality, when this plays out in the game, it is almost way more than that in bullets fired at you. And we've all been there too. We've shot at somebody and you've seen the 8 or 9 hits on them and they still don't die. And you wonder why. Well, this is where we're at. So now that we've shown some of the basic difference between the plates, and hopefully you understand that now, let's get into some of the other variables that can greatly impact the outcomes with your survivability based on what armor you're walking about. So that means we're going to talk about layering and how that affects all of this. And this layering basically is just a complex way of saying when you take a armor plate like this and you stick it in an armor, because you have armor here right now. This thing is providing armor even without a plate in it. It's just airman and it's only class 3. When you put a plate in there, now you essentially have 2 layers of armor covering that area where the plate's at. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to do it kind of old school, or the way I like doing it with paint. It's kind of like a whiteboard, but it lets me draw it out and, John Madden it, if you will, and show you guys specifically how it works. So when we're talking about layering armor, we have a couple of systems going on here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a representation of the plate. So this is going to be your armor plate. Okay. That's what green is your armor plate. Next up, we're going to show airman. We're going to do that. Well, yellow's not going to show up very well. Let's go with orange. So orange is going to be your aramid backer. Okay. That's what orange is. So this is your armor system. This is your layered armor plate, aramid. Now coming in, we're going to have our bullet, right? Here's our bullet, Mario style. Maybe we even draw, a smiley face and some teeth on it, just like the Mario bullets were. I'm aging myself a little bit, but bullets coming in, right? The first thing it's going to do is it's going to hit that plate. And then the game is going to do its set of calculations on this first plate here. And it's going to decide, is there going to be a penetration? If there is or isn't from here, is it going to be how much blunt damage is there going to be, or how much pass through? And if it passes through, then you've got a whole nother calculation of how much damage there is, how much damage reduction, along with how much damage is done to the plate and all those kind of things. In both of these instances, it doesn't matter what it is. Both of these also now apply to the aramid. So even if the bullet penetrates or doesn't, the aramid comes into effect. Now, if the bullet is stopped, there's a blunt damage applied. It's just a percentage. They're kind of getting complicated with the math. We're not going to get in there. We're just, for simple purposes, we're going to say it's a percentage of the bullet's damage. And then the aramid is going to do a reduction based on its level of 2 or 3 to that blunt damage. So if, let's say that this bullet does, we'll just say 50 damage, and it's going to let 10% through, then on the aramid, you're only going to get 5 damage to the aramid, and then the aramid's going to reduce this by another, let's say 30%. And so now you're down to 3 or 4 damage. And then that 3 or 4 is what gets applied to your thorax or stomach, depending on where it hits. Now let's clear all this out a little bit and make some space here so I can actually show you guys what I'm talking about. Let's, for argument's sake, that on this shot, the bullet gets through and hits the aramid. Well, at this point right here, when the bullet passes through the steel plate and it penetrates, it's going to have a reduction in its pen. So what's our aramid pen, or I'm sorry, our 855 pen again is 31 pen and 54 damage, right? So you, instead of your 31 pen, it's going to get reduced down anywhere from, 40%, 30%, 50%. We're just going to say 50% just to keep the math simple. So now your pen is 15, and the damage, instead of being 51, is going to be, we'll say it's going to be reduced by 40%, or it's going to be, it's going to be 60% of its total. So we're going to say 30 damage, right? These two numbers right here, 15 and 30, these two are your new numbers that get applied to the aramid. So when the bullet gets through the plate, it gets reduced in damage. And now the aramid is going to do its own dice roll against 15 pen and 30 damage. And then that process starts all over again. If it's a block, how much blunt gets going through. If it's a penetrate, how much is reduced. All of that stuff applies. Now, this was a really complex picture to draw. And thankfully, Tarkov Gunsmith is going to let us simplify this really quickly and show you the results of this without having to do any crazy math. So let's put all this together. We're going to keep sim 1, 2, and 3 here to refer to, but we're going to go into our fourth sim now. We're going to throw 855 in here. We're going to do the same plate as here. It's going to be the Kiba Arms Titan Ballistic. So let's grab that whoops, wrong one. We'll grab the Kiba Arms Titan Ballistic. And then underneath here, we're going to go with an aramid backer. And for me, I like using the CPC. It does matter which one you have potentially. We're just going to stick with the CPC for now because it's the one that I like. And it's going to be the front one. It's got 40 durability. It's class 3. And now we have an armor system. So when we hit multi-shot, it's going to spit out what it takes to get through, not just your first plate, but also the aramid with 855. Okay, we're going to keep sims 1, 2, and 3 up here just to reference them. Sim 4, we are going to pull up 855 again, right? And we're going to put in our Kiba Arms Titan Ballistic plate, which is the same as Sim 1, as you can see here. And we are going to put behind it a Class 2 aramid. Now, one of the more common ones you're going to see is going to be the Karasa. Let me see if this pulls up here. Maybe I didn't. Yep, there it is, Karasa. So this is your level 2 aramid. It's going to be the thorax stomach aramid insert for that. And now we're going to do multi-shot, and we're going to see what kind of results we get. Now, if you remember, we were 6 shots, right? With just the plate, nothing else. We are 6 shots to our 49, our basically our 50% coin flip. With aramid, with level 2 aramid, with 855, this now goes to over 8 bullets. It's 8.5, but we'll say, the 9th bullet is the one that's probably going to kill you. 8th one puts you about 30%. So this is a pretty extreme jump just for putting a little bit of aramid behind the plate. And this is really important. I want to point this out because there are armors out there that don't have aramid. Now, specifically, if you want to look at it, let's go look at the Hextech, the HPC. It does not have any aramid. It's only the plates. It's a plate carrier. This also applies to the Hex Grid, which hopefully that pulls up right here. As you can see here, there is no aramid. It is only the plates. And the Tasmanian Tiger plate carrier is also the same thing. These are only plate carriers. There is no aramid backer to them. So if you're using these, you are hamstringing yourself with survivability. And again, that shows right here, whereas with just the plate, you have 6 rounds to your 50%, whereas here, to get over that 50%, whoops, I clicked on the wrong one, you have to get to 9 rounds. Now remember, we were talking, it's not just 3 bullets. That's probably going to equate to maybe 8 to 10 bullets when somebody's shooting at you. And we're going to go even a step further, and we're going to show how much of a difference with 855 and everything else being the same. We're going to have the Kiba Arms plate again, but instead this time we're going to go with level 3 aramid. We're going to grab a CPC. It's one of the better ones, but you can get the CPC pretty quickly through ref, at least as of doing this video. We're going to do multi-shot, and you can see here now you are 10 shots to 22%, and the 11th shot you jump to 90%. But that's almost double from just the plate by itself. So the question a lot of people have about why people are so tanky, this is part of it. And this doesn't just apply with the best armor. I'm gonna go in here. We'll skip the poly because it's in the middle, and we will go right into we'll go with steel because it's one of the more common plates out there that people are gonna run with. And this is steel, right? Yep, there we go. And then we'll throw in the CPC. We'll throw in the class 3 because if you have the option, you should be running class 3 with this anyways. And we'll go into multi-shot. And you'll see here with steel, you go from basically not taking any damage to all of a sudden you're probably going to die. That's the downfall of steel, again, how fast it wears out, but it's 8 shots now. So with aramid and steel, you are pushing yourself beyond just the plate by itself if you have a good plate. I'll look here at 3 at the steel plate. So remember, steel plate is 5 shots to get over your 50%. With the level 3 aramid behind it, now you are 8 shots. Okay, now that you guys, we've shown 855 against the armor that it works on, let's show how this can drastically change. We're gonna set this up pretty much the same thing. We're gonna go Kiba arms, and we are gonna go with the CPC armor plate or insert. But now we're gonna go with 856 A1, which jumps us up to 38 pen, which is substantially higher. When we go to multi-shot, you're going to see pretty quickly how much of a difference, even just a little bit of penetration. We're gaining, 7 pen from 855 to 856, and how much more effective that is against class 4 plates. So all things being equal, you're essentially 5 shots to kill somebody, whereas with 855, you're 11 shots. Same armors, same everything else. That bullet, that 7 extra pen, right? That's where we're going. We're going from 31 to 38, correct? Cuts in half how many bullets, more than half, how many bullets it takes to kill somebody, at least with class 4 armor. And this is why class 5 becomes so valuable for everybody, because this 38 pen, 40 pen is pretty much where you can peak out on what ammo you can buy on the flea market. One of the real common ammos that everybody's complaining about right now, and I think rightfully so, is going to be 7.62 by 39 PP ammo. It's one of the higher pens you can buy. It's 41. You can still buy it on the flea market. But let's say somebody is running a class 5 plate. Let me grab, I don't remember exactly which one it is. It's the one on Skier. It's the one that I run the most. It's probably one of the best class 5s you can get a hold of. Yeah, here you go. This one. So it's the Colt Locust Ballistic Plate, class 5 Titan. So let's pull that up onto the simulator here. Colt Locust, class 5. We're going to throw a CPC behind it. And we're going to do a multi-shot. As you can see, getting to that 50% threshold is pretty tough. You're 35% on 5, but 6 shots, and these are clean shots. Arms reduce penetration and damage. Not a lot, but they do a little bit. And so if you're shooting through somebody's arm, that's going to make their plates that much more durable. So this here is one of the reasons I think that people have a lot of complaints about this round, because it falls into this area that it used to feel really good, but now it doesn't, because of all the different armor changes and the things that have, the way they've gone down. And it also emphasizes why it's so important to get a class 5 plate if you can, at least in your chest, because it does just stand up to damage a lot better. But this is also why when you see that jump from, one type of ammo to the next, it can be night and day, even though the penetration doesn't feel like it's all that much. And to show that, let's just do the difference between 856 A1 on this same setup of armor on the class 5s. 856 A1 is 8 shots to get over that 50% threshold with a class 5 plate and class 3 aramid backer. Whereas if you go to 855 A1, so 8 shots, just so we're all clear, if you go to 855 A1, then you have your 5 shots. So there you go. There's your reduction. And that pen change is, it does look like a lot, depending on how you look at it, but you're going from 38 to 44. So you're only going 6 more pen, but it's where that number lies at. And this is part of the reason I believe BSG cut off ammo at 41 pen, because that is right where class 5 starts to feel good. Is if you get into 42, 43, 44 pen, then you have a little bit, you chew through class 5 faster. And that methodology with this wipe we're in now, where BSG left 40, 41 pen ammo for the most part on the flea, has to do with because they took class 6 off, and class 5 is high-end barters. You can't buy it on the flea, you can still get it, but you can only get it through barters through your traders, and it's limited and stuff like that. So on all, what this boils together is the same story is always the way it is. Wear the highest class armor you can, shoot the highest pen ammo you can for the most part when you're PvPing. If you're running into people with class 5 armor, you want to get to that 43, 44 pen or higher. If you're fighting people with class 4, like that's what you're seeing, you want to be, 33, 34 pen. If you get below those thresholds, that's when you're going to start to see problems and people are going to really be tanking tons of ammo, especially if you're shooting them face on, you're hitting arms, you're not hitting all of them on the plate, you're not hitting them all on thorax, things like that. All right, well, I think that's everything. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Or if you see me when I'm streaming, I'm on Twitch and YouTube at the same time, come by and ask. I'll be more than happy to answer what I can, or maybe even do some demonstrations for you. And if I see enough questions of one kind of topic, I'll probably be able to do another video to fill in that little bit of info if I didn't do a good enough job, or people just have some other things they want to see. And lastly, before we get out of here, a quick shout out to my music that is made in partnership with Low Wave Records. We're up to 184 songs and 11 albums. It's free to listen to. It supports me as a creator, and we made it for the community and with them in mind. So if you're a streamer or a content creator, big or small, it doesn't matter. You're free to use this music without the fear of DMCA takedowns or copyright strikes. All we ask is that you attribute us some way, either in your description or however, so folks know where to find it if they like it. The link is down in the description. So check it out. Let me know what you think, which songs you like the best. But we'll wrap her up there. As always, I appreciate you guys and your time and using it and taking it to watch my content. I wish you the best of luck in your raids, and we'll see you in Tarkov.